Good morning, and we're back with Tarot on SaTAROTday. Alright, so we had to skip a week or two because, COVID finally hit this household pretty hard. But we are doing well, and we are back to do our weekly SaTAROTday. So, I'm going to continue shuffling because I need to get some more shuffles in here. But today, I figured I would use my main deck, my favorite deck, the deck I use more than anything else for most personal reads or reading myself or others. Now I don't use it much on stream or for like general reads or when I'm in group read sessions. I use multiple decks for that, but this is the deck that I really just stay focused on for all of my major tarot working. And this is the Steampunk Tarot by Barbara Moore, illustrated by Ali Fell. As you know, Barbara Moore is the one who writes the books, and I'm sure she's involved in some of the design choices. But she's on a lot of tarot decks, and she's one of those that I really, really enjoy reading some of her stuff. Some really good articles and other books that she's written, so you should look her up. And then Ali Fell has actually done imagery on a couple of decks, this being Steampunk. Now there's more than one Steampunk deck. There's a Steampunk deck with Matthews. There's a Steampunk Tea Leaf deck. There's other Steampunk decks that I've seen. But this specific one has just always been one that speaks to me very well, and is really easy to read. It carries some of the similar imagery of your Rider-Waite and other traditional tarot, but it is steampunked and clarified enough that it just makes a lot of sense, and it's really easy to read. So it's been too long since we have done one, and I've got to get my car in for service today in about an hour. So this one's not going to have a lot of editing either. So we're going to do this one pretty quick, but I just felt it's been too long since we've had one out. So we are back to our normal, what is the energy coming for the week, and what is it that we could potentially focus on and look out for in our lives. Now, and I read this general aimed at this many people or this much openness. Some things may apply to you and some things may not, but hopefully card or two will speak to you and give you some guidance and some ideas of, what am I going to do this week? Something might speak to you and give you some ideas and some thoughts that you can kind of go through and really make some changes for yourself this week, So let's go ahead and get some cards out. Page of Swords, the Moon, an Eight of Wands. So we're going to start with these. Excuse me. I know we've talked about this before. When it comes to pages, well, really any court card for me, we're really talking about kind of like people usually. It can be the querent, it can be you, it can be somebody, but it's usually representing a person or a status of a person, right? So for example, if I'm pulling a page as I just did, the Page of Swords, we're talking about somebody who is in the mindset. They're in this youthful phase because they're a page, but they're in this, how do I get my mind right? What do I think through logically? What is the mentation of the event or of the things that are around me? And so this person is really thinking through things, but they're also really new at it, so they're not experienced, and they're maybe having some difficulty trying to get through it, but still doing it in a positive manner. Because when you first start out, think of it, you've chosen to go back to school, and you're in that first class, and you're like, oh, I'm good to go, it's ready. And then you find out, by the time you get to your third or fourth year or semester, you're like, okay, I'm really tired, I'm ready for this to be over. So kind of think of it that way. It's very similar in my brain to freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. So you have your page, your knight, your queen, your king. It's kind of the same idea of progression, but think of a person. So either you or somebody that is in your life right now is in this stage of youthful mentation, of thinking something new and working through a process really strictly, and maybe having some difficulty with figuring out exactly what to do or how to move forward, but not stressful. It's not a stressful situation. So for me next week, one of the things I may focus on is allowing new thoughts to come into my mind and to start allowing maybe my thinking process to be a little bit slower or a little bit more open, and kind of bringing things in that way through the Page of Swords. But of course our other cards are going to color this a little bit. Our next card is the Moon. This is our only major arcana in this deck, so I'm going to say this is the centerpiece of the read next week. Now, we just went through a full moon, and let me tell you, it was crazy. Last week was nuts. The energy was nuts. It was crazy. So the Moon is really talking in this position, in a 3-card draw, and in this kind of centerpiece, that whatever it is that this Page of Swords is trying to get us to think about or meditate on or process through in a mental clarity way, the Moon is saying, yes, but let's dial back the light a little bit. Let's not illuminate everything so much so that everything is in plain view. We need to start looking at the contrast between things, or seeing what's hidden by the lights and the shadows that we see around us. So from an energy perspective, this is paying attention to those things that are hidden. This is paying attention to maybe somebody who maybe doesn't have the most pure intentions. Not saying that there's this terrible thing that's going to happen, but if we want to progress through the energies next week that are going to occur, then we need to be aware of what's lying underneath, behind, beside, or in the hidden areas of those. And to do that, we turn the light down a little bit so that we get a better contrast. And that's what a full moon does, right? The full moon, it's nice and bright relative to other moons, and the night is relatively bright compared to other nights when you're full, but it's still dark. And then the full moon illuminates only very specific things, so you can't see the details in between, but what you can see is the illumination of the sketch, the outline. Where is it that we're headed? So between these two cards so far, and our third card is going to give us quite a different message, but our Page of Swords is letting us know that we need to go through new thinking processes. We need to be ready to move and go out and really be open to new ideas, and allow those new ideas to kind of grow and move and work. And the Moon says, find those new ideas by illuminating things differently, or looking between things, or maybe even checking what's the outline of something, and maybe you've been missing the forest for the trees. Moon says all the time to me, look at the forest. Look at the forest, because the forest is going to show you what's hidden underneath it. Just a piece for me. Now, our third card, this is the one that's going to give us a little bit of more color in all of next week. So our Eight of Wands is really, let me say, excuse me, we are still a little sick if you can't tell, a little sinusy still. But anyway, Eight of Wands, or eights, can generally talk about things that we are either achieving or we are proud of, or that we're moving forward on. It can also, show a lot of change. So for me, when I see an Eight of Wands along with these two cards, it's really about our openness to the creative process, right? Your Page of Swords is not necessarily a creative person. So they're going to think logically through something. Your Moon is all about the art, not the science. So this isn't direct opposed to the swords. And you throw in your Eight of Wands, and this throws the art back in, right? So this is saying, you may not be comfortable with what's happening or the thing that we're working on, and there's going to be some change in there, but we have to really be willing to accept the art of what we're doing. I'm going to try to come up with an example here without really thinking through it. So let's see if this works. If I'm a Page of Swords, I'm going to walk into a new situation. And in that new situation, I'm going to start applying a logic to it, because I'm a sword. I cut things in twos. I put one here and one here. When I use my sword, it is very sharp and it is very specific, because I keep it up. And as a page, I am keeping up with my new tools, because I'm new at this. So everything has to be black and white. And I want things to be organized in a specific way. And it's going to be difficult for me when they're not. Then my Moon comes up and says, look, you don't get to see it all. So you got to watch where you put that sword. If you go to and you start cutting something and you haven't seen the whole picture, you might be cutting out the wrong thing. So pay attention to what's in between stuff, and you're going to have to look for that. So now I'm nervous because I'm a sword and I need left and right, up and down, in and out. I need everything balanced and perfect, one or the other. There's no gray. And then my Moon is telling me, everything's gray. So I'm kind of freaking out as a sword, right? Enter the Eight of Wands. Eight of Wands says, look, you can do things and you can have change and you can open your mind a little bit, and the outcome is still going to be okay. But let's just take a second. Let's go through this change as what's in front of us. So now, as a sword, I'm going to kind of calm down. It's like, okay, I still have to think logically, but let me make sure I'm looking in between, the little nooks and crannies and finding that I'm really working with the right thing. And then when I'm done with all this, I'm going to learn something new because I have a change and I have an accomplishment. I have grown something new. I have done something outside of the box, and it's going to give me a good change. It's going to adjust how I manage stuff. So when you put all of these cards together, you can really see that the energy of next week is all about us. This is about us stepping outside of our normal comfort zone, accepting in some things that aren't normally there, and then keeping our eyes peeled more than normal to kind of make sure everything that's around us is still kind of going in the right direction. If I could give the best advice for this type of a reader, for this specific read for next week over the next couple of days, is no snap decisions, because we're going to want to do that. And just ask the question. If you're like at work and somebody says something, just ask, are you sure about that? Is that correct? Is there something else that might be we need to look, or maybe that we need to look at? Is there a different aspect or different perspective that we can look at this? So ask those questions that give you the answers for what's in between. And then with your 8 of Wands, let creativity and change happen. Because remember, for me, Wands they're creative and passion. We talk about that a lot, but it's also transformation. When wood burns, wood is a solid and it's not hot. It burns, it gives off heat and light, things that we need. So transformation of something solid into these other things, the heat and fire and energies that we need around us. So the 8 of Wands talks about the achievement and the change of that transformation. So our advice continues along that. It's like, let's transform some stuff. This isn't a huge thing. This is just aligning our energies a little bit so that we can march through different processes and things that are coming our way. We are in an era or in a time, not just weekly, monthly, yearly, but decades coming, of massive change, massive adjustments to the way that we think and how we process, not just generational changes that happen with generations, but we are going to have full paradigm shifts in our lifetime. So in order to process those, we're going to have to constantly use our ability to adapt and change and transform. And that is really what it's talking about here. So for this week is our first taste of this. Let's work on how we change. Let's work on how we transform, how we interact, and how we decide and look for all those pieces in between. So hopefully next week as you go through, and remember, when I say weekly reading or next week, these are energies that extend well past the next week or so. This is just maybe like, since we had a recent meteor shower, this would be like next week is the meteor shower of this energy. But this energy should continue. You should continue with the open-mindedness and the thought process of, I can still think logically, but I can add some art back into it and color it so that I can make better decisions and have better choices. So with that, I hope you got something out of today's read. A little rusty. You take 1 week off and you feel like you're starting brand new again. It's weird. But I am glad that we are doing better enough to do this. We will be doing our Sunday service tomorrow on the 14th. Same time, 10:30 in the morning and Eastern time. Hope to see you there. And if you have any comments, any way that you like to read, or any messages on the cards that are different from what I put, please feel free to share them in the comments section or send us an email. Like and subscribe if you like what we're doing, if you want to see more, and check out our other videos. Eclipsing the Shadow, new video will be coming very soon, probably this week. So have a wonderful rest of your day. Hope you guys have a great weekend and a great week next week. Adios.